You know, I'm going to give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Start laughing! And when I do, start fucking.
Also, y'all did some nasty-ass jokes on my ass, too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You fucking guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Why Are You Laughing? Today, I'm pleased to introduce you to Joke Thieves from the Vaulted Podcast Studio in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and the whole gang with me again. And we did an episode, or a couple episodes involving joke thieves or alleged joke thieves with Carlos Mencia and Dane Cook. And since we talked about it and we referenced a lot of other people, I said, let's go through some joke thieves throughout history and see how prevalent it is in comedy. And I have an interesting theory that I don't know that it really even exists, so we can talk about that a little bit as we go through here.
I like that.
But I don't know. Any before we get started, I guess. Do you guys have any takes on how high a crime joke stealing is? Like, Mike, you weren't here when we did the Rogan Mencia episode. Do you think Rogan handles it appropriately, or is it a little much when people get that angry about it?
No, I get where Joe Rogan's coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of he's got a shorter fuse than most folks anyway.
I understand getting that angry. I just still think he shouldn't have gone on stage necessarily, unless this is like the 12th time he's talked to him.
It is profiting from other people's work. You know what I mean? Like, just straight. So at the very least, I think it should be handled, like, if you're knowingly doing it, it should be handled where you're hired as a writer, just to give him a fucking job rather than this weird. And some guys kind of did that, which we'll get into as well.
But the way Mencia did it, or the way they said he did it, when he used to hang out in the back of the Comedy Store and
that's malicious.
Listen.
Yes.
That deserves a pummeling.
That's actually perfect, because there's the difference between Mencia and Dane Cook.
Or what we talked about with Dane Cook, and that I think is the more prevalent version. But we'll get into it as we go along.
Also, parallel thinking is.
We'll talk about that too, because I've assembled quite a few clips from different types of joke thieves throughout history. First, I should say, go to patreon.com/blindmike. You'd be listening to this a week early if you were there. So make sure you do that. Go listen to these boys on Very Good Show. And The Average Nobodies is Matt from Rhode Island's podcast, which is recorded right here at Vaulted Podcast in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So if you do your own podcast or film something, whatever, go to vaultedpodcast.ri.com. All right. So the first clip we have is talking about Milton Berle, who was apparently smuggling jokes in his trousers, because the two things I know about Milton Berle are that he has a monster hog and that apparently he steals jokes. Which we talked about this in the Three Stooges episode a little bit, where I think this was a lot more prevalent back then. Because there wasn't necessarily like the code of the comedian. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these guys were different. You weren't necessarily a stand-up back then as much as like you were a vaudeville act, or you were just an actor that wanted to. And L.A. has kind of kept up that trend where it's people that aren't necessarily stand-ups. But now you have this, brotherhood of stand-ups, for lack of a better term. So there is more of a code, but I guess Milton Berle was notorious for it. So let's hear a little bit about him first.
Milton will forever be the comedian whose entire act was just a compilation of stolen material. For starters, let's begin with a famous Milton Berle quote, where he was commenting on a funny bit that he had heard. Milton said, "I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my pencil." Yeah. The pencil he used to jot down every great joke that he heard and use in his act. He never liked being called a joke thief though, and would often tell people that he was a repurposer, which actually earned him the nickname the Thief of Bad Gags. To really drive this accusation home, in Melvin Heltzer's book called Comedy Writing Secrets, he said one day Milton Berle and Henny Youngman were listening to Joey Bishop tell a particularly funny gag. Milton whispered, "Gee, I wish I said that," for which Henny replied, "Don't worry, Milton, you will." So now, this clip also led us to the fact that Carlos Mencia's excuses weren't even original. He ripped them off from Milton Berle. He was calling himself a repurposer 50 years earlier.
Right.
That's much more egregious than I think a lot of the idea of having a notepad out, and that's the type of shit Mencia would do. Like, that's just intentionally saying, I can't come up with things, so let me, and you convince yourself, I think, like the excuse of I'm a repurposer. I think that's just someone that, like, is so unoriginal that they've found a lane where now Milton Berle was very successful. And he says, oh, well, no, it's a different thing. I'm not a thief. I'm doing this different thing than you guys are. You come up with the original material, and I change it a little bit. So I guess, and we said this about Mencia too, but it's like, he's probably a very good performer. You know what I mean? Like, he's a great MC or whatever, but not a comedian. You know what I mean? Just doesn't have any original shit.
Yeah.
And like we talked about with Freddie Prinze, it was so much easier to be original back then. So come on, Milton. It wasn't that hard.
I think the kid doing that video bugs me more than he did, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, listen.
I also loved that he was like, Milton Berle and Jack Benny were watching like Jack Parr. It's like, wow, all these old fucking names.
Oh.
No, it's just like,
well, who would he be watching? Bill Burr?
No, it's just fair enough.
What, do you want more contemporary references in this 1950s story?
Bill Burr never even heard of Joe Rogan back then.
Yeah, what a hack. Yeah, you should have been doing this on a podcast. Why?
Sorry, guys.
Jesus. So yeah. Now I can that nonsense made me lose my train of thought. I don't even know what we were talking about.
Joke stealing.
Yeah, well, whatever. Whatever other thought I had about Milton Berle is gone forever now.
All my apologies.
So yeah, now we move to a different guy who this is where we border on not parallel thinking, but something we talked about with Dane Cook, which is like hearing things and just forgetting you heard them, I guess. I think that may be a little more of what happened to Robin Williams. So we'll play what he did, and then I'll explain my theory. But Robin Williams is like everyone everyone says it. And like you hear John Witherspoon here, even after his death, people couldn't help it. So they're like, hey, I don't want to say it, but he was a complete thief. So let's hear what Robin Williams would do back in the day.
Huge fan, man. But I wanted to know, is it true that Robin Williams was known in the comedy world as a comedian that would go around and steal other comics material?
Well, he did that. He had a bad rap on him about that, man. And I have to admit it, he did it. You know, it's not good to talk about the dead, but yeah, he would take people's material. But he would have people, he would have his lawyer come in there when he come back to the comedy store and give everybody a check that he stole the material. See if you prove that he had stolen the material. And he would steal stuff every week when he was on Mark and Menday. So, yep. But you didn't get that from me.
He would take material and then come back with a check and pay them for the
When he
material?
was on Mark and Menday, they told me he was ad-libbing. He was ad-libbing. That's why he was so funny. He taking all everybody's best material.
So the stream of consciousness thing you hear with Robin Williams all the time, where it's like, oh my God, he would throw out these references. It's because he consumed them from everybody else, put them all together in some weird act that he did, and then went back and paid people after. I've heard that a lot, by the way. John Witherspoon was just the clip I found of someone talking about it. But a lot of people talk about how Robin Williams would lift people's material and then, like the fucking mafia, come up to him with an envelope later and say, thanks for doing business.
I mean, that's better than most people do.
Yeah.
It is, and so that's where you get into why not just hire them for something? You know what I mean?
The one joke's not going to make or break anyone, but if you steal a whole bunch of them and put a whole act together, pay everyone for it, it's not really going to change their careers at all.
So, like, The Tonight Show did that, where people would send jokes in, and I mean, obviously they had a writing staff and everything also, but, like, people would send jokes into The Tonight Show, and they would use them and everything. But the difference there is you know what you're doing.
Right.
When you're on stage telling a joke, and 6 months later, Robin Williams hands you a check because he's been doing your act, that's not really the same as being hired for. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's a much bigger difference when it comes to like being upfront with it.
Right.
So, what I do believe happened though, because the '70s was a real whirlwind for a lot of people, and everything about Robin Williams is he loved a little nose candy. So I think the reasons you saw some of the I'm over here and the weird mannerisms and the speed of talking and all that. I think that may have been drug induced at times. At times, I don't know.
A little
Perhaps at times.
My world is shattered.
So I do I do think it's possible. Here's my Robin Williams theory. I want to know what you guys think of it.
You're gonna say
That
impression.
He was. Oh, hey, I'm the genie.
We just saw it.
I'm the genie.
That's what he would say. He'd say that all the time when he.
Yuck.
Nothing better. No better impression than someone that says, "I'm Robin Williams."
Yeah.
That's the mark of a good impression.
You know that cartoon he did? That's me.
So here's my theory on Robin Williams and guys like him, where Robin Williams would be in such a fucking coke-infused state where he was a tornado of thoughts and jokes, and he'd have his own jokes and references, and he'd say them, and in conversation, other people would say them to him, and he'd hear people on stage, and this is all such a whirlwind in his fucking 10 million mile an hour mind that things got swept up in there. Like Louis said to Dane Cook, things get, you're a machine, and things get caught up in this machine. You don't know where you hurt them, but you know it wasn't necessarily you, but you're willing to ignore that kind of, and then, you know, I don't know how long it was before he paid. It was 6 months, a year, 10 years, well, whatever it took for him to realize that he did that. He'd be like, fuck. And he'd be riddled with guilt, because if you know anything about Robin Williams, he may have suffered from depression as well. I'm breaking a lot of Robin Williams ground here. I know I shouldn't be telling these tales at a school about the guy. But, yeah, so, like, I think he felt a lot of guilt about that when he realized what he'd done. Now, maybe I'm giving him not enough credit, maybe too much credit, whatever it is, where I'm trying to, you know, kind of temper the whatever malice you went into that with. But I do believe that's definitely possible. Particularly for a guy that was in the kind of mental state that he was at all times. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that or not.
I was just, I was just thinking of your genie impression. To be completely honest with you,
well, good. Glad we're all on track.
I'm the genie.
Who's next, Matt?
Talking about the Conan staff incidents.
Oh yeah, so this is another form
is popular
of joke stealing where, and this is, by the way, I don't think anyone blames Conan for this necessarily, right?
No.
This is more...
you wouldn't know.
You hear a ton of allegations like this about Family Guy in particular.
Yes.
SNL.
Everybody. SNL is another big one. A lot of people. Now, I do often wonder how reliable that is, because a lot of times what you see is, some open micer or, some improv person tweeting, "Oh, Family Guy or SNL stole my joke." And it's like, I don't know. Were they follow? Are you sure they were following you? Sometimes it's a little question.
They go to open mics and comedy shows and wherever people are doing it because they might hear something that either inspires them or just straight up rip it off.
Yeah. So that's, again, the kind of evil Mencia, Milton Berle version where it's someone that just has no originality. But in these people, like Milton Berle and Mencia were doing it to like enhance their act and add things to like, maybe they had their own jokes and they peppered these in or whatever. These writers, their job is to come up with one-liners for Conan's monologue. And they're like, well, we're out of ideas, so let's go down to, the Comedy Cellar or whatever open mic in New York or California, wherever they are, and deliberately steal from people who no one knows what they are. And they've probably been, I think Carson's guys had done that type of shit as well. But back in the day, you didn't have Twitter.
Forever.
Yeah, you didn't have Twitter back then where someone could just spout off and say, hey, Conan's doing my jokes. So evidently this all came to a head with Conan O'Brien at a certain point.
On February 4th of 2015, Conan O'Brien told a joke.
Tom Brady says he wants to give the truck he was given as the Super Bowl MVP. They gave him a truck. He wants to give it to the guy who won the Super Bowl for the Patriots. I think it's very nice, yeah. I think that's nice. I do. Yeah, so Brady's giving his truck to Seahawks coach Pete Carroll.
The day before, Robert Alex Caseberg tweeted this joke. The same thing happened again.
Yesterday, surveyors announced that the Washington Monument is 10 inches shorter than what's been recorded. Yeah, of course, the monument's blaming the shrinkage on the cold weather. It's a penis joke.
And again.
Some cities that have streets named after Bruce Jenner are trying to change the streets' names to Caitlyn Jenner. Yeah. Yeah, and if you live on Bruce Jenner cul-de-sac, it will now be called a cul-de-no-sac.
The coincidence in timing was enough for Caseberg to sue O'Brien and Time Warner, which owns HBO, for joke theft, alleging damages of at least $600,000.
Jesus Christ, how do you get to that figure?
I was gonna say I don't know how they come up with that number. Like, how is that? First of all, I don't think Conan's show when it was on TBS was making $600,000 a night. You know, certainly not based on one joke.
No, that was really egregious though.
It's damages.
It's egregious, and that's like we talked about with a lot of these guys. It's when easily any one of those three jokes, easily two people could have thought of.
Yeah.
That's where we talk about parallel thinking. But then when it becomes a pattern, and every night Conan's doing a joke from some guy on Twitter.
It's the same guy.
Yeah. So then it becomes, this is a little too, like, right in your face, where you have to think someone is obviously following this guy's Twitter. And again, that's not Conan. Like, I don't even know that Conan at that time was, like, proofreading these fucking jokes before the show.
$600K is an insane amount for three jokes.
It's a calculation.
That's a lot. For jokes you would have also seen on Reddit, by the way, you know? And now that's a lot. That's pretty much what late night monologues are, where it's people rushing to fire out the same joke about fucking Caitlyn Jenner or whoever. Yeah. By the way, bleep out Bruce, please, Matt. That was very bad.
Dead name.
They dead named him.
We shouldn't have aired that. I'm terribly sorry.
Dead named her.
No, it was him at the time. I'm confused.
They dead named her now.
Anyways.
Sorry. Used to be a him.
Very, very bad by Conan. But it's a weird area where they're clunking their heads. So, like, as we're recording this is coming out far down the road. But as we're recording this, I tweeted. So I saw Louis last night as we're recording this, and I just said that the show was great, and fucking 50 people clunked their heads, penis erection, jerking off, like everyone can't wait to fire out the most obvious joke. That's what late night is now, where you're talking about the news story of the day. So whatever that is today, you have Kimmel's staff, you have Fallon's staff, Seth Meyers, every other show, plus everyone on Twitter, everyone on Reddit, all rushing to make the same joke. So there is going to be a lot of parallel thinking. However, the reason this guy has a case is because 3 nights in a row, he used 3 of the same fucking jokes from this poor schmuck.
Right.
You know? So that when it becomes a pattern is where you start to see like, oh, maybe it's, maybe there's something
to this.
And then again, it's like with the Dane Louis thing, I said the reason I gave Dane a little more of a pass is if the jokes were from the same album, I believe that he could have listened to that album or seen Louis act in person, whatever, heard all of those jokes, and then 3 years later not remember like why is this in my mind? You know what I mean? But again, with Conan, the same night is a little fucking weird.
Yeah,
right.
So now we have Patton Oswalt talking about a similar type of incident, right?
Correct.
Yes, let's hear that.
You've accidentally stolen a joke.
When I was starting off, I was still an open micer in DC, and I was terrible. I said, if you want to make sure that you can sit alone on the bus when you're in your seat and someone says, hey, is this seat taken? And you go, oh, no one's sitting there except the Lord. And then they'll leave you in. Now, that's a Carol Leifer joke. It's a great joke.
Now
and I came off, and my friend Blaine Capatch said, hey, dude, and he wasn't even being mean. He was like, that's a Carol Leifer joke, dude. I don't think you realize you did it. And I was like, and then I realized, oh my God, it was. I'd seen her do it on, one of these 9,000 stand-up shows that were on TV at the time. But it's a difference between the people that every now and then you accidentally throw a line out there and go, oh, geez, that's not mine. Or the people that they throw a line out there and it gets laughed and they go, meh, fine, let it pass. I'm getting money.
Yeah, so I think that's clear. The intent is really the difference, and we'll talk about that a lot when we get to Amy Schumer as well. But like that happens to me. I watch so much stand-up that happens all the time. Where like in a year I might reference some premise I heard last night from Louis. You know what I mean, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, where the fuck? Why do I have that in my head? Like, where did I think of that?
You know where intent is a big difference too?
Where's that?
Murder.
Jesus Christ, we got it. The Patton Oswalt joke. That hasn't been fucking ran into the ground. Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
So whatever. But yeah, it's that's the thing is like a lot of these things get caught up in your brain, and there are no original thoughts now. Like people have been talking on stage for 100 fucking years, so it's hard to have. There's going to be overlap. Like we talked when you weren't here, Mike. Norm and Jim Norton had a special come out a month apart, and they each had a joke in these specials about leaving a suicide note and blaming just some innocent victim. Norm's was, Brent Abernathy knows about this.
Yeah.
And Norton's was like, Murray in HR knows what I'm talking about or something like that. But it was this exact same premise. Yeah. Now, knowing anything about either of those guys, neither of them saw the other's act. First of all, I don't think Norton even pays attention to other stand-ups. Yeah. But neither of them saw the other's act and thought, I'm going to steal a Norm Macdonald joke or a Jim Norton joke. And just character-wise, neither of those guys would do that.
Yeah.
And them each being, both of those are on Netflix. So the idiocy it would take to be like, no one will notice this.
Yeah.
Right.
So that happens a lot. It's just a matter of calling yourself out for it and acknowledging it. Like Norton talked about it on the radio when they came out.
Yeah.
What's next, Matt?
We have the Trevor Noah and Russell Peters.
Yeah, this is interesting because I've heard allegations of theft about Russell Peters.
Yeah.
People say Russell Peters steals jokes.
Really?
Yeah, and
I never heard that.
I mean, if you hear
real.
I like Russell Peters.
I haven't heard a lot of Russell Peters shit. I know a lot of his stuff is kind of general racial and ethnic shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is very easy to have parallel thinking.
He's also sneaky, like the biggest comic in the world.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's money-making wise, I forget if he's bigger than, but it's like him, Kevin Hart, and Jerry Seinfeld.
In the United States, he's popular. Everywhere else in the planet, he's selling out arenas.
Yeah, he's massive. And a lot, a lot of his comedy is culturally based, and it's not, Dave Chappelle talking about the nuances of race relations. Yeah. It's kind of just generic stuff. So it's very easy to have parallel thinking with a lot of people in that, which is why I'm not surprised that both there's allegations against him and from him. Because maybe none of it's true, but again, when we see a pattern, maybe that's the case. Let's hear what Russell Peters says about Trevor Noah. I think this is on the Sway show on Sirius XM.
That's correct. And I have this clip, and then I have the example right after.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I'm a fan of you. I'm a Trevor Noah fan.
Why? If you're a fan of me, you don't need to be a fan of Trevor Noah. I'm a thieving motherfucker.
Why you say that? Trevor's a...
What do you mean? Why do I say that? Go review the fucking tapes.
Oh, we're being serious.
Trevor's original, man.
Where?
DB?
You accuse it? What, he took your material? Or?
Yeah, I called him out on it once before, and then I thought he would stop, and it continued.
Wow.
From your material?
Yeah.
By the way, Trevor Noah should get back to stealing material, because if you I don't watch The Daily Show.
Nope.
If you ever watch a Viacom channel at any hour of the day, when they go to commercial break, you will see a commercial for The Daily Show. And if you haven't seen it in a while, what they do is the same as they've always done. They just put a joke from that last night's episode and say, watch The Daily Show, Comedy Central at 11, whatever the fuck. And every time I see this, and my girlfriend's a big Trevor Noah fan. So every time I see this, I say, not only is that a horrendous, it's the worst bomb I've ever heard, particularly when they had no studio audience. It would be uncomfortable to watch. And I'd say, that's what they're promoting the show with.
Right.
So Trevor Noah, get back, steal from whoever you need to. But Comedy Central is paying you too much to not be stealing because it's horrendous. But anyways.
It's real bad.
And by the way, before we get to this Trevor Noah example, which I want to get to, but you boys may remember, Russell Peters was wrapped up in a far worse case of theft than joke stealing, and that would be personality stealing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Do you guys remember a gentleman named Dan Ninen?
Yes.
I know the name.
Yes.
Well, we did a whole show on him.
We did a whole show on that.
Patreon. He's the guy, his signature joke is that he's half Indian, half Japanese, so he gets his sushi from 7-Eleven.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
That was
We did
so long
a whole
ago.
episode on that.
So,
Oh my god.
so we did an episode on the great Dan Ninen. Look into Dan Ninen. Go to patreon.com/blindmike. You can hear all about him.
Go way back too.
Yeah. that was
Dan
a long
Ninen,
time
worse
ago.
than a joke thief, would steal people's so he stole Russell Peters' website, and he called it was Russell with one L instead of two.
Yep.
Right.
And it was Russell Peters with one L.com, and he would put, hey, here's where Russell Peters is going to be. By the way, here's where Dan Ninen's going to be.
And I'm also 29 years old.
And he would also, he lied about his age, and he would also call clubs, and he did this with also Bob Schimmel and other comedians.
Yeah, Robert Schimmel.
But the one who exposed him was Russell Peters when he was on Joe Rogan, and he talked about this Dan Ninen. And what Dan would do is call up comedy clubs and say, hey, I'm Russell's manager. He wants this guy Dan Ninen to open for him. It's his usual guy, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if you have a house opener, but Russell would like you to use Dan Ninen. And they were like, all right, they didn't give a fuck. So they were like, whatever. And then Russell Peters started to notice, like, why is this guy opening for me in D.C. and Baltimore?
Schenectady.
And, like he's all over the place. So he started to put it together and realized he stole his website and everything. So, Russell's been a victim of stealing a few times. But now, with all of that in mind, let's hear how close this accusation is.
Okay, then watch him do his Russian bit versus me doing my Russian bit.
Pull up the Russian bit.
Pull it up.
Pull up the Russian
Sway's
bit.
going to get to the
gotta
bottom
hear
of this.
this.
And I could tell you exactly when,
You ever heard people
how,
speak Russian?
and why I wrote the
It's
joke.
amazing. They just sound like they're talking backwards the whole time. Vladimir,
That's kind of funny.
This Russell Peters.
If anything, Russian just sounds like
Trevor Noah.
a DJ is scratching on a turntable. No, Vlad. No, listen, Vlad.
Interesting.
Wait a minute.
And look what comes up.
Oh, boy.
Trevor Noah steals Russell Peters' joke.
My favorite part of that clip is Russell Peters saying, well, fine, if you want to pull up the Trevor Noah clip, and Sway like a detective, pausing. Pull up the Trevor Noah clip with dramatic effect. But, so I got to be honest. I don't know how you guys feel about it. To me, if that's the only example, I think it's probably parallel thinking. That's not that crazy that two guys could come. To me, that doesn't seem that crazy that two guys could come up with that.
He almost said the exact same fake Russian words.
Yeah.
It was pretty close.
It's weird that in a way when the example is different, like where you use a DJ instead of rewinding.
Yeah.
It almost like is a signature that you are stealing because you're like, well, if I change it a little bit, no one's gonna notice. You know what I mean? So it's hard. It's hard to judge. But I would, if that's the only example of Trevor Noah stealing, then I personally would give him a pass because it's like two guys can come up with that shit.
It doesn't help that I don't like Trevor Noah so much.
Yeah.
That I'm like, that was thievery.
You hope
that
it's
asshole.
true.
Yeah.
At least like Russell Peters is a massive comedian. Trevor Noah's, love him or hate him, is a massive comedian. There's an example of something like this that I think is the reality of most accusations. I think that's our last example, so we'll get to that later. But I believe now we get to maybe the most controversial, and that would be Amy Schumer, right?
Yeah, this is the part of
there's
me
a lot of
pulling
these.
clips that I forgot that we're doing an episode on joke stealing and not an episode on Amy Schumer joke stealing.
Yeah, so we have about 15 examples.
Those are all Schumer?
Those are all Schumer. I
Holy
have
shit.
7A, B, C all the way through.
Oh my god. Let's go.
So there are a lot of accusations
Accusations, yes.
against Amy Schumer. I will tell you why I think Amy Schumer is guilty of something. I don't think it's a joke thievery necessarily. But I'll tell you that in a minute. First, we'll hear a few examples. What do we have first?
I think it's going to be a few minutes.
It depends on what you want to hear. So we have Kevin Nealon, we have John Mulaney.
Let's start with Mulaney because this is one I hear a lot.
Okay.
Blacking out is when you drink so much that your brain goes to sleep, but your body gets all Eye of the Tiger and Soldiers On.
And I black out when I drink. Isn't that the worst? No, your mind goes to sleep, but your body's like, tonight is my night.
Ooh, she looks so good there.
So that's are you being serious or no?
Dead
Can't
serious.
see. Okay.
Dead serious.
Yeah, Amy. So that's actually what I'm going to talk about. Amy got put in a weird box where she was cute when she started. Like
She's
Amy
very attractive.
Amy was a good-looking girl. I think she was genuinely funny. A lot of people would disagree, but I think her early shit was funny.
Her appearances on O&A were funny.
Yeah, that shit was funny. She seemed like a legitimate comic, and then for whatever reason, the media and just the right groups decided Amy Schumer is the female comedian for this generation.
Yeah.
They just decided she's the queen of comedy. and they lifted her to this, frankly, undeserved level of fame. And that's not a knock on Amy. I thought Trainwreck was a good movie.
Yeah,
but
I did too.
But Amy Schumer, kind of like Pete Davidson. I mean, at least Amy Schumer had a show and a movie and a stand-up act. Pete Davidson's done nothing really. But like, it's this element of like, why are they so famous? Like, why was Amy ever so famous? And again, inside Amy Schumer, which comes up in a minute.
Oh yeah,
that was a funny show. I liked it better when it was Mad TV, but it was a funny show. I think I used that joke on a different episode actually, so I feel like an asshole now. But
stealing from yourself.
Yeah, just a hack. But I think Amy was funny. Now, this example, the Mulaney example, let's pretend right now, because it's the first one we heard, let's pretend it's the only example. That's perfectly reasonable. That I've thought of that.
Right.
And it's such a everyone that drinks in college has blacked out at some point and said, what the fuck? I don't remember anything that happened, and I behaved like an asshole. Everyone thinks
the thing with Schumer, though, is it got so bad, and she got like the Dane Cook effect when people just hated her because it was cool.
Yes.
So they started nitpicking every fucking word that came out of her mouth.
So the reason I wanted to play Mulaney first is I hear this, people always say, John Mulaney, she stole from John Mulaney. And it's like, I mean, so the counter to what I said was they were both coming up at the same time. They're around the same age. They were both performing in New York. So it's very possible that Amy was there when John was doing that joke, or vice versa, by the way. So they were doing that joke around the same time. There are a few of these where that it makes no sense that Amy would have stolen them. But again, I think it's perfectly legitimate to think that was parallel thinking. Now let's hear the Kevin Nealon bit, because this is, again, two things. I think it's a pretty, frankly, lazy premise that a lot of people could have thought of.
Yeah.
And B, I really don't think 28-year-old Amy Schumer is watching Kevin Nealon's material. I mean, maybe she's a crazy comedy fan that I'm not aware of. But like,
Subliminal Man.
Yeah. So let's hear this example now.
It dawned on me that I don't see it in colors. I don't. In high school, I went out with this Chinese girl for a while once. I didn't even know she was Chinese. I thought, I don't know, maybe really tired? No, seriously, I felt bad. I kept bringing her home early every night. I said, you get a little sleep, we'll do this again another time. I'm not going anywhere.
No, I couldn't be less racist. I mean it. I was at a party 2 weeks ago in LA, and who walks in but Michelle Kwan? And out of nowhere, she tells me that Oliver Stone, the director, she's like, he has this huge Asian fetish, and I find it totally offensive. And I'm like, why, Kwan? That sounds awesome, And she's like, well, I'm offended because I'm Asian. And I was just like, well, I'm sorry, but I didn't even notice that. I thought you were just like really tired.
See, that one's more on the nose to me than the last one.
Really?
Yeah.
Because to me, I think so. The setup of like I don't even see color. I'm not racist. This and that. I get that, but also like that seems to me like a joke my fucking uncle would tell. Oh, their eyes are shut. They must be tired. Like your hack local bar patron would tell that type of joke. I think, like, to me, it just seems like lazy joke writing by both of them. Now, when Kevin Nealon, it was probably less lazy when Kevin Nealon did it. He was probably more original then. But now we get into where like so the Kevin Nealon thing and the Mulaney thing is where I think, again, Amy Schumer got famous super fast, and like we talked about with Freddie Prinze, I inaccurately started the Freddie Prinze episode by slandering the man's good name. And then I quickly realized he was fucking 22. Amy got famous when she was 28. Like, she was in comedy, she was extremely young. So a lot of her material is going to be kind of generic. So the idea of having like an Asian joke like that, or a joke about blacking out, that's not that crazy that she would be thinking of things that other people also thought of at some point.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a lot of fucking COVID jokes right now.
Yeah.
And and a lot of them are going to be the same. A lot of them are going to be wiping down your groceries, or fucking, the something to do with masks. And some of them are going to be pretty similar. And you're going to say that must be joke stealing, when in reality, two people could easily think of that thing.
Yeah.
But when the evidence piles up is when we get suspicious. What's the next example?
So we can go down the road of any of the clips from inside her show.
No, I don't even want to. We'll hear Kurt Metzger talk about those a little bit.
Okay.
Let's stay away from those.
We have Tosh.0. We have Ellen.
What's the Dylan one?
Dylan.
Let's hear.
Dylan Moran.
Let's hear Tosh.
yeah.
Because again, these two are like contemporaries, kind of.
Yeah.
So it's more likely that she would be in the club while Daniel Tosh did this joke or something.
Yeah, this is Daniel Tosh and then a joke from Trainwreck.
Okay.
We'll put an asterisk next to Barry Bonds' name, sure. As soon as we put one next to Babe Ruth's name. Getting to break records before black people were allowed to play? Excuse me? Where is that asterisk? Why don't people talk about that? I'd love to know how many homers the Babe would have hit had Cece been throwing him 92-mile-an-hour sliders. Yeah, maybe the fat boy would have put the cigar down and quit pointing had Jose been allowed to swim 90 miles to throw him a junk ball.
Babe Ruth was a superhero. He was a Superman.
Easy to be a Superman when you never played against a black guy your whole life.
What has white black got to do with it?
Every 12-year-old kid in the Dominican Republic right now could probably beat Babe Ruth.
Blah, 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 blah,
Before
blah.
1947, it's one big asterisk.
First of all, if you dare drag Colin Quinn into a joke-stealing conversation, I'll slap that smug look off your face.
I was just going to say, that one was the least egregious so far.
I've heard, like, cornball baseball writers make that point.
Yeah.
Like, seriously make that point. It's a legitimate point that would Babe Ruth have had as many home runs if he was playing against, whoever the top Negro League pitcher was at the time. So it's just a legitimate point. This is when, like Craig said, they're really nitpicking. People hated Amy Schumer.
Hated.
And
they're really fucking nitpicking if the only thing that was similar was the word asterisk.
And some of it's justified based on the way Amy kind of behaved. Because she had a little bit of a Howard Stern thing going where all of a sudden she like ignored and apologized for some of her prior material. Like she's like, oh, that's not who I was, and I didn't mean that by this and that. And she kind of abandoned like what made her popular at first.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason people hated Amy. Part of the reason is people hated her politics. Part of the reason is like a lot of guys, it's mostly guys that hated Amy. And it's just a lot of guys that didn't find her funny. Which my thought on that is like, there's women that are very popular in comedy that I don't necessarily find funny, but it's probably because I don't relate to their, if they're talking about their period, I have no relation to that. Unless they're talking about it like from their boyfriend's perspective or something. I would have no way to relate to it, So I think that's just like a difference of perspective where of course Amy's going to be more popular with women.
Definitely.
So this is, again, nitpicking. I don't know, Matt, do you think there's a better example than the ones we've heard?
I thought the Attell joke was kind of
okay. So let's hear this
from Skanks to the Memory.
Remember this before we play this.
Don't you dare.
She loves Attell, and she put Attell in her movie.
Put him in Trainwreck.
Like her and Attell love each other. I certainly don't think she would consciously steal from Dave Attell, but let's hear how similar.
There's one she stole from either Patrice or Chappelle. I forget which one.
The Patrice one.
Patrice one is
the Patrice.
That's that.
I have those two.
No, it isn't. You have Patrice?
Yeah.
Let's hear. Let's hear it. Let's play Patrice first. Yeah.
I have two jokes for Patrice back to back.
Okay.
You have a gorilla masker? Gorilla mask? That's it. You come in a face, right? And then take some pubic hair and throw it at her.
There's the Abraham Lincoln. That's where the guy trims his pubes, comes on the girl's face, and then throws the pubes. So she has that facial hair.
Theft.
Why?
It's the same joke, different name.
They exist.
I don't know.
And it's also 10 years later, so she's like, I can probably get away with this
that's
now.
That's crazy. If you think that's
dead for a
they're
while.
both sex acts that exist. They're not. Those aren't jokes.
They're
saying what sex acts
the
are.
Urban Dictionary.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's lazy.
Patrice
It's
wrote
lazy.
the
Patrice.
Urban Dictionary. It's 2006.
Yeah.
Patrice wrote Urban Dictionary.
Well, clearly he's saying this before it even existed.
What are you talking about?
I think the hand motion is what does it for me.
All of it.
Yeah.
I think that might
don't
be.
know.
I think that might be. Maybe she changed it. Maybe it's parallel thinking.
What are the
but
odds Amy saw this? By the way,
High.
Yeah,
Pretty
I don't know.
high.
I don't
Pretty
know.
Why?
fucking
Why?
high.
Why do
She
you say
was
that?
with all of his friends all the time.
What are you talking? You think he does this when they're hanging out?
No,
This
but
is
you
the
don't think in
same-
2014, 13,
Yeah.
she's like,
I
let
think
me
it's
go look
insane.
through his
Nah,
shit?
dude,
I think it's insane. If you think so, Amy Schumer, we said the other jokes aren't stolen. We all kind of agreed on that.
Right.
So the one instance of Amy stealing,
It's word for
is
word except for Abe
no, it
Lincoln.
isn't. It's yes, that's what it is. They're describing what it is.
Do you want to hear the other one?
So if I described right now what teabagging was, and so did so did Eddie Murphy at some point, am I stealing from him? Or am I just saying, hey, it's dropping your balls on someone's eyes?
You're not trying to like get.
I like to think I am. I like to think I'm entertaining. Yes.
No, I mean,
I hope. I wish. It's crazy that you think. But let's hear the next one.
All right.
Same special.
You have a poltergeister? Poltergeist is good. Well, you need your friend though, right? Like you're fucking him from behind, and then you sneak out, and he takes your place, and then you walk outside and wave at her through the window. And then you go, I'm here.
The worst one I've ever heard is the Houdini, which is where the guy's having sex with the girl from behind. Then unbeknownst to her, his friend subs in for him. Guy number one runs outside, knocks on the window, waves to the girl.
So you're telling me if it wasn't for Patrice O'Neal, you couldn't have found that shit on fucking 4chan or
She
Reddit?
even fucking pantomimed the same way.
But
I don't know.
I think that having those two from the same special.
fucking special.
Yeah.
Back to back.
That's the only thing.
That's again where it gets a little weird. But again, that's where I would say I'd call
Also-
out Patrice a little more Patrician. Like it's kind of hacked to just
He
be.
was it was 2006. He probably made it up
That was part
himself.
of his act.
I don't think so.
Remember when he was on Fox? He did the same.
The
he did
Angry
a bunch
Pirate.
of those too. Like that was part of his act.
But the ang-
She
again, the
shouldn't be
Angry
doing
Pirate
those
is a
in the
thing.
first- Yeah, I know, but like Patrice, that was part of Patrice's act was
I
to
guess.
do those.
So
And
my-
her doing those is like kind of stealing premise wise.
So
both of those were exactly the same except
Yeah.
for 2 words.
Okay. Well, what I would say is if we can't find another example, then it's weird to me that Amy would never steal her entire life and then say, except for these 2 sex acts that are very generic and probably on Urban Dictionary, even though Craig thinks he wrote that for some
Stop
reason.
defending Amy Schumer. I don't like
here's,
this.
I won't.
Here's the thing, though. With the I don't know what the Attell one was. That one, it could be word for word, and I would go. She probably just heard him say it 1,000 times.
I'll play it right now.
You ever black out when you're drinking, or as I call it, time travel? Yeah.
Has anyone ever blacked out and been awake when they've come out of it? Thank you, sister. It's kind of cool because you're a time traveler. You're just like back in your body, like.
That might be.
Attell is the best. Attell. Did you see his special road work?
I heard it's awesome.
It's so funny. It's
Just talking about having seen it.
Because balls are disgusting, aren't they? Wow. And they stink. Yeah, they do. All right, I'll speak for my balls. On my best day, my balls might smell like a foot. On my best day.
He's brave, okay? He's brave. And I'm going to tell you why he's brave. And this does not leave this theater. And this does not leave your home. Here's why he's brave. On my pussy's best day.
Oh my God.
After all of that, on its already best day, my pussy smells like a small barnyard animal. Okay?
Her timing on that was horrendous. That's what I would call it.
The joke was just bad.
Yeah, it's funny though. If you want me to stop defending Amy Schumer, South Park, like when South Park made fun of Amy Schumer, it was just Cartman saying, "I love when Amy Schumer says my vagina," and that wasn't. I felt like it was like inaccurate at the time, and then the leather special came out after that, after South Park did that, and it was as if Amy Schumer was doing an impression of Cartman. The whole special is my vagina.
Imagine her seeing that episode, having her special in the can, going "fuck." Like,
all right, we're scrapping the whole thing. We're restarting. Yeah. So
see, that one I didn't find as bad, although she did say. The other one was like word for word, pantomimed the same.
I think the first Attell joke, you're probably right. That just got into her brain. Like she heard him say that a million times, didn't know where he heard it.
Yeah.
Because I know she opened for Norton a lot. She probably opened for Attell, I would assume.
I'd imagine.
That's a pretty famous line from a pretty well-known special.
Right.
My favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think a lot of it feels like nitpicking. However, here's where you might turn me, folks. We said in the Mencia episode, Craig, that Amy was like kind of showed remorse and was like, if I did this, I'm sorry. Like I didn't mean to. It wasn't really that. Like that didn't really.
No,
that's not really how it happened. I don't know, Matt. Do you think we should play Metzger first or Amy Schumer's response?
Yeah, I think Metzger first.
Yeah. So before we get to Amy, Metzger was on Joe Rogan. And if you know who Kurt Metzger is, he's just a fucking animal.
I love Kurt psychopath.
Rogan had to do everything he could to reel him in here. But this is after the allegations. Kurt Metzger was the head writer on Inside Amy Schumer.
Yeah.
And a lot of the accusations were that Amy stole from Mad TV. And again, a couple of the bits were like, I could see why you think that's stealing for sure. But I could also see two people coming up with that idea. Like one of them was... Amy was in a store.
Yeah.
And the only person, she's like, she's getting rung up. And the cashier says, do you know who helped you today? And Amy's like, that guy over there? She's like, ooh, there's two guys standing next to each other. She's like, which one? And Amy's like afraid to say the black guy.
Yeah.
That was on Mad TV. Like Jordan Peele did the same thing like 10 years earlier. And, but that's like, I could see them stealing that. I could also see two people coming up with that. I can't see Kurt Metzger stealing anything. And neither can he, apparently, because this is what he said on Rogan.
If I tell you, you know, there's that whole joke thief shit there, I'm like, listen, I was there, and also I know comedy, and I know better than you jerk off at home. So if I tell you, just think I know better. I'll just put it that way. Maybe that's arrogant, but I just been doing it for 20 years, and you never had the balls to get on stage. So I think I just know better. They're outraged.
You're fighting with someone who's not even here. No one even knows what you're fighting over right there. You just started some joke thief fight. No one has any idea what the fuck you're saying.
All right, guys, is when I defended Amy.
Right.
Amy, and I had people like lecture, and I'm like, don't presume to tell me shit.
Yeah, I mean, I say what you want about Amy. I just believe Kurt. Like, I don't think Kurt would steal shit. I'd be very surprised.
Right.
And I think it's just a matter of, like, people weren't checking enough. But there's one more clip from that, right? Where Rogan kind of says what you guys are saying to me.
Correct.
Where it's like, hey, there are examples, you know? So let's hear that.
But the problem with what you're saying is they have evidence. They're looking at one bit, and it's exactly the same as another bit.
If I look at the evidence and I come to a different conclusion, let's go with my conclusion because I was there.
What about due process?
And the guys who are saying it,
there's
a
due process guy. That's not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough to convince someone. Oh,
Dude,
just trust me.
Do you think we
isn't that like some authoritative sheriff type shit? Just trust me.
Hey, I'm not going to them. To the sheriff. I'm not going to them. They're coming to me.
But you're saying just trust me. I'm watching this video. I'm watching these jokes. They're being repeated. You're saying just trust me.
What jokes are you talking? I'm talking about sketches people claimed were taken, which is nonsense. I was in the room. I was the fucking cop of the room with that shit.
But that doesn't mean anything.
No one watched Mad TV in the room. Sorry.
Stop. That doesn't mean anything because the bit still got on the air. See what I'm saying? Like you might not.
But it didn't happen intentionally.
Listen, it doesn't matter. That's what you have to say. That's not what you're saying.
I did say that.
No.
I gotta say, Craig said this was us 5 minutes ago. And as the autistic monster of the group, I side with Kurt Metzger. I think he was spot on. Like he may sound like a fucking maniac, but I think he was right in the sense that he was there, so it's hard for him to even conceive how people could disagree with him. But people are looking at evidence and saying, "Well, what the fuck are you talking about? We're looking at this."
The thing I'm thinking though is he's getting way too defensive.
Yeah.
If you yes, you're right.
Also,
but
he's a logical fallacy.
He's a maniac. Like watch this whole episode. Literally, they were talking about something else, and all of a sudden, he's like, "This Amy Schumer thing."
Yeah. No, I remember I watched or listened.
And he was getting into Facebook fights with people at the time.
Yes, this was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's a funny history timestamp when Owen Benjamin is acting like a civilized human being.
Shit. That's why
in a video.
That's why I said that in the middle. Like, was that Owen Benjamin just politely sitting there?
He was a person once.
He's in the woods now.
So yeah, I tend to agree with Kurt just because like I said about Norton and Norm, I just don't believe Kurt would steal.
Right.
So I don't believe that was happening. I think it was just a matter of, and Rogan talks about this in that episode. It was a matter of something went wrong. Maybe it wasn't joke stealing. It's by a different name where they should have, Googled, has anyone done this kind of basic race premise before? Oh, Mad TV, So it seems like an easy enough way to figure that out, to avoid that.
He was also losing me on that. I've been doing this for 20 years. That was bugging me.
When that's where Rogan's right, where his excuses were wrong.
Right.
Like what Metzger was saying was wrong, but I
love Kurt Metzger, but
his basis was right that like Metzger wouldn't steal.
Well, that's just like someone saying you can't
Sure.
you can't get pissed off or critique a dude like a wide receiver for dropping a pass. Well, you never
played. Yeah, exactly.
it's
That's where Rogan's 100% right. Where Metzger
exactly.
loses
By
his
the
mind.
way, we all have to disagree with Metzger, or this show's going to stop right now.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. Yeah. They all said they're not stealing, except Dennis Leary, actually, who we'll get to.
Dislike.
But so now let's hear Amy on the Jim Norton show, which existed for a very brief time on Sirius
Vice
XM.
show.
So
good there, too.
this was not as I remembered. Where first of all, I forgot the charge against Amy. While I blamed all men for hating Amy earlier, the charge was led. You ladies cannot stick together. The charge was led by Tammy Piscatelli. Who does a little bit reek of jealousy, like an older comic who never had the same success that Amy did, that started this kind of crusade against her. But then people like Wendy Liebman and Kathleen Madigan, who have a little more respect, I think, started criticizing Amy as well, and saying maybe they stole jokes. So let's hear from Amy a little bit with Norton here.
But most important for me and like why I'm here is like I did not steal any jokes, and I wouldn't. And the reason I think this is coming up, I think that it's Tammy. I think she's upset. I blocked her on Twitter a couple of years ago because she was unkind to my best friend is Rachel Feinstein, a comedian, and and I didn't like how she treated Rachel, and so I'm a very loyal friend, and so I was like, well, I don't want to talk to that chick. And I don't think she's got much going on. This is my guess. I don't know. Maybe she has 9 deals. We got along fine, like, I opened for her on the road in like 2007 and like totally, just bombed beyond all recognition. I never watched her. Like I've never like watched Tammy's specials or anything. But I think people get upset by success.
So that's different than I remember. I thought she kind of owned up to it a little more.
I would bet a lot of money that there's another clip.
I listened
Me and
to
you
it.
have had this conversation more than once going, at least she owned up to it.
Yeah, I thought she did too. I mean, that was kind of the crux of it was, and maybe she does a little bit at some point, but like the crux of it was, this is all kind of led by Tammy Piscatelli. And there are a couple things in there. This is where, whether or not she stole jokes, this is where Amy started to lose people, where she says in there, and she's talking to Jim Norton, so you'd think she'd be a little more relaxed. She goes, Tammy was unkind to Rachel. Whereas like 5 years before this, she would have said, yeah, Tammy was being a bitch to Rachel Feinstein. And you know what I mean? Like she sounds kind of robotic here.
Yeah.
So
and then she brings up,
she's a lot more famous, so she kind of has to watch her mouth.
I guess, yeah. But if she didn't, she would be more popular, actually, I think.
Correct.
You know?
I mean, it's hard to beat arena sellouts.
Yeah, yeah. But I think she'd be popular with just a different crowd.
Yeah,
you know?
the one you want.
Yeah. But she also says, like, she brings up, I don't know, maybe Tammy has 9 deals, where she's kind of like now waving her success in people's faces, which is a little gross.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, she's like, I've never watched Tammy, while saying I opened for her. So there are some fingerprints of, like, she's not owning up to this at all.
Yeah.
And saying, like, oh, I can understand why people would say I stole from fucking Mulaney or Kevin Nealon or Attell or Patrice or whoever.
See, that's the thing is, the Mulaney and the Nealon one, I could be like, that's just kind of like a blah joke.
Yeah. She brought up Patrice, and I didn't pull the clip, but she brought up Patrice and said, I just never saw him do those jokes. And Norton said, the reason I believe you is because I know how much you love Patrice. I know what he thought of you. I just don't think you would do that. That was the logic they kind of put to it.
Yeah, I don't know. Those particular clips, I'm like, Jesus Christ. The rest of them, I could, maybe the Attell one.
Right. Well, that's, oh boy. This is going to be a long one, boys. Mike said it would be a short one. We didn't know how long we'd get tied up on Amy.
I didn't know we had
the Amy Schumer battle.
My apologies.
I didn't know there was 28 clips of her.
So what's next, Matt? Well, I think we're moving on to a new comedian.
Yeah.
CK asshole bit.
Wait a minute.
From Dane Cook?
No. This is
so we're on to Dennis Leary.
Yes.
Dennis Leary.
So I referenced this story, and I found it and sent it to Matt. I referenced this story in the Louis C.K. Dane Cook episode.
Yes.
So Dennis Leary, notorious for stealing. I didn't. And I know the Bill Hicks special is the most egregious one we have, but this was even worse. So let's hear
I hate
Louis.
Dennis Leary.
Louis tells
Yeah, I'm
this
not a fan
story.
either.
Remember, Dennis Leary was huge in Boston.
Yep.
Louis C.K. came up in Boston. He's like 19. He's working on this bit, and this is Louis C.K. on Opie and Anthony probably about 10 years ago.
When I was a young fella starting in Boston, I guess I was like 19 or 20. 19. And I was doing my signature bit, the bit I closed with, was a bit about if you were an asshole and you knew it, and how cool it would be to just say, I'm an asshole, and just let yourself have that life, that your life would be better. Like you're driving, you go, hey, should I cut that guy off? Yeah, I'm an asshole. Why not? You know, park in a handicap space, only an asshole would do that. Fuck it, I'll do it. I'm an asshole. That's me. And he said they should have like a picture of an asshole instead of a wheelchair, and just make those the asshole spaces, and the whole bit. Anyway, so one night, doing a show at a place called Play It Again Sam's in Boston, and Dennis is the host of the show. He was a huge star in Boston at the time, and on the comedy circuit, and he went on after me. He was always nice to me, by the way. Put me on the shows when I wasn't on them.
Should be.
Gave me guest spots, and then that night he went on after me. After I'd done the asshole bit, and like went, that's really funny, and like remarked on it and expounded on it, like, yeah, like I'll do this because I'm an asshole, and I'll do that because I'm an asshole. Like he just started.
He actually started riffing
on my bit, but acknowledging that he just watched me do it. Which is I think is okay. And then like I don't know, a month later or something, I'm downstairs at Sam's. I just walk in, and he's just doing the bit. He just started doing it. And I was young and just started out, and I was like, well, he's huge.
Wow, I'm flattered.
What do I do?
Jesus.
It's also funny because he brought it up in the context is that Anthony said he met, like they were talking about celebrities that like have snubbed them. And he said Anthony met Dennis Leary at a bar once, and Dennis Leary was rude to him. And so Louis goes into that story. And then the reason it came up on the Dane episode is Louis starts laughing, and he goes, there's this other poor schmuck who's been getting tortured, and I haven't commented on it ever. And for some reason, I thought to bring up this Dennis Leary thing today. So then we get to Dennis Leary, I guess, kind of acknowledge. So, by the way, if you don't know, for you kids out there, that song, the asshole, Louis talks about him doing the asshole bit. Yeah. He turned it into a song that was a monster. I thought about sending you a part to play, but I think we could take it off YouTube or whatever, so I just figured why bother. But there's literally a part where he says, parking in handicapped spaces while handicapped people make handicapped faces. I'm an asshole. And so that was on MTV. It was played on radio stations.
I listened to that song on repeat.
It was
I never liked it.
It was a monster. Whether you liked it or not, it was a monster song.
That's fact.
And, it's a career-making bit, you could argue. Because I don't know a lot of Dennis Leary's stand-up, but I know that fucking song.
I know that one.
Yep. And, by the way, if you know the melody of the song, Anthony has a great line here. But there is Louis explaining when he ran into Dennis Leary a few years later.
The pieces that are important to tell is that years later, I'm living in New York City. I run into Dennis on the set of a movie he's doing, and he says, God, you're always so funny. What are you doing with yourself? And at the time, I was trying to finance an independent feature I was making, and he gave me several $1,000s and helped me find it. He just basically gave me money.
Oh, that was guilt money.
Yeah, which I never really even thought of that, but I guess that's true. And I mean, he gave, and so he invested in it. And when I run into Dennis, we say hi to each other. And
was he counting out the money going,
so great, awesome one by Anthony. But yeah, it's very funny, similar to Robin Williams, where like maybe he's not a total piece of shit, Dennis Leary, because on some level he felt bad.
Yeah.
But now let's get into where he is a total piece of shit. So Dennis Leary, the most egregious thing ever. We've talked about
Bill Hicks too, though.
We had we'll do a Bill Hicks episode. I don't know a lot about him. But people have asked for it. People want a Bill Hicks episode.
It's true.
So I don't know a lot about him, but people have said, we had a spirited argument about whether or not Amy stole. I had the defense of Robin Williams, where it's like maybe he just got swept up in this drug-infused whirlwind he was in. Mm-hmm. Russell Peters and Trevor Noah, where it's kind of close. Who knows? But we have not talked about yet, and this is the only example that I really know where it's this egregious. So Dennis Leary got famous after his special No Cure for Cancer.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a Bill Hicks fan, so I don't know a lot of the material. So let's dive in and see just how much of No Cure for Cancer is similar to Bill Hicks' special. And Bill Hicks was alive. He was certainly alive while Dennis was doing this material. I don't know that he was alive when the special came out, but let's hear it.
I'm a heavy smoker. I go through about 2 lighters a day now. And is that a lot?
I smoke a lot. I smoke 7,000 packs a day, okay? But listen to this. How many non-smokers do we have here tonight? Bunch of whining little maggots. Whining fucking maggots. Because the non-smokers get on my nerves, don't they? They have all these commercials. Have you seen the commercials? The famous dead celebrity commercials where they get a celebrity who's dying from a cigarette-related disease and they film a commercial with him before he kicks the bucket. Then after he dies, they run the commercial and make us feel creepy and queasy. You know what I'm talking about? Yul Brynner did one too. Did you see that one? Don't smoke. I died from lung cancer. Don't smoke.
Anyone remember this? This is pretty weird. Anyone remember when Yul Brynner died and came out with that commercial after he was dead?
Jesus Christ.
You remember that? I'm Yul Brynner, and I'm dead now. What the fuck's this guy selling?
I'm looking forward to cancer, man. But I don't want that bone cancer or that stomach cancer. I want that throat cancer. That's the best kind. You know why? Because when you get the throat cancer after the first operation, they give you that voice box thing. You know what I'm talking about? The thing that makes you talk like this.
That is my big fear in life, doing smoking jokes in my act, you know, then showing up 5 years from now. Good evening, everybody.
Oh, shit.
So pause. I mean, we're a few jokes in here. It's the entire special is Bill Hicks' special. And Bill Hicks and Dennis Leary were friends. And I guess this like really broke Bill Hicks' heart before he died. That's how I knew he was alive, at least while he was doing this act. But yeah, they knew each other. And this is getting there's more, by the way. There's a lot more. I think people have said like it's almost word for word.
So it is, but the reason I hate Dennis Leary is he goes on stage and goes, you know what's gonna be funny? If I say I smoke 7,000 packs of cigarettes.
He's whack. He's wild. He's zany.
I fucking.
He's a man's man.
You think he does a little bit of coke before he performs?
Well, he probably back then. So I even like the show Rescue Me.
Yeah, I do too.
But my criticism of it was always like first of all, I never say this. You can tell it's written entirely by men.
Yeah.
Particularly Dennis Leary.
Yes.
Because the women's dialogue is so not how women would talk.
No.
But also, like they'll be in this heated argument. Like Dennis Leary and his wife on the show will be in this heated argument. And the wife will go, of course the sex is great, Tommy. It's always amazing. Tommy was his name on the show, by the way. But
Tommy
it's
Gavin.
always like, Tommy, even... They'll acknowledge he's flawed, but he's this stallion in the bedroom, and he's a man's man, and he's got a hell of a cock on him. And it's like, all right, Dennis, we got it.
And he fucks every girl in the entire show.
Yeah. But he's always like, it's a temperament that the country had.
Yeah.
That was a little more. It was cooler. I mean, you see with like Stern's probably the best example, where it was cooler to be like macho and shit. And now it's like it comes off as like corny now.
Yeah.
So when you hear a lot of this shit, like, do try to remember that like. So a lot of people thought Dennis Leary was cool for doing this, but it does come off as very hack at times.
It totally does. And Hicks's delivery is so much better.
So much better.
So much better.
He's not trying that. He's not outwardly showing you, I'm a man. You hear this?
He's like, I'm looking forward to cancer. Because, you know, after the operation, they give you this thing. You have to, like, explain it. And Hicks, like,
he's more laid back.
joke, he's
I'm
just
looking
like,
forward to cancer, actually.
No, he didn't even say that. He was just like, I don't like making these jokes because, like, 3 years from now, I'm going to be doing this.
Right.
That's such a better structured joke. Like,
Your voice kind of sounds like cancer.
I know, right?
But I don't think it really does it justice if we don't hear all of these. So let's keep beating, let's beat the people over the head with Dennis Leary and Bill Hicks similarities.
Like this Judas Priest trial. Did you follow this?
Oh, yeah.
You know the story? 2 kids, big fans of Judas Priest, listened to this album and then went out and killed themselves, and the parents sued the band Judas Priest.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. I missed the fucking point someplace. The boat left and I wasn't on the boat. Explain it to me. Heavy metal bands on trial because kids commit suicide. What is that about? Judas Priest on trial because my kid wrote the record and he listened to the lyrics and he got into Satan.
God,
So now,
fucking hate him.
Awful.
now we're getting into, if we just focus. Yes, there's a lot we could do on just his delivery, but if we focus on joke stealing, now we've moved into like every topic is the same. Like smoking makes you a man, then the voice box thing. Now we've moved to a totally non-smoking topic. What the odds that they talk about all these things in individual, totally separate specials seems weird. I don't know if we have more. I eventually put Matt to a merciful rest here.
Not only this, that's 2 Dennis Leary specials. He's ripping off the same special.
Yeah. So, and people say the one that came out after Bill Hicks died, and he ran out of Bill Hicks material. It was like a dramatic drop, and that's when you see all of a sudden Dennis Leary becomes an actor. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden he's not doing stand-up as much anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot more. I just figured we get the point at a certain point, but we got one more here.
It's just a strange world. I don't know what we choose, why we choose the things we do as a collective. You ever wonder that? You know what I mean? The fact that we live in a world where John Lennon was murdered.
We live in a country where John Lennon takes 6 bullets in the chest. Yoko Ono was standing right next to him. Not 1 fucking bullet. Explain that to me. Yeah, here's $10. Bring me the head of Barry Manilow, all right?
And why is it we live in a world where John Lennon was murdered, yet Barry Manilow continues to put out fucking albums?
I mean, the references are the same.
Shit.
It's every topic, every reference is the same. It's so, I mean,
Holy shit.
Undeniable. Like, completely undeniable.
God, I hate
I don't know why Dennis Leary didn't get more shit for this.
You could have gone with so many other people, but you had to go with Barry Manilow.
You
know what I mean?
Right? Because even, you got to give guys like Carlos Mencia and Amy Schumer credit. They'll change the reference.
Yeah.
It's not the exact same. It's like, come up with another. Just say Michael Jackson or something. Like, who gives it? You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Should do an episode just called "I Hate Dennis Leary" and break him down.
We could do Dennis Leary at some point.
Bring him in here.
But
beat
yeah,
him
this
up.
is the gist of it basically, and it's pretty brutal. But it's I don't know why he hasn't been called out for it more.
Leary?
Yeah,
probably because of what you said. How he went. All right, I'm done.
Oop, I'll be getting out of here. Yeah. Jesus. And then the last one's Chappelle, right?
Yes, correct.
So this is the big finale because this is how I feel about most joke thievery. And just make note of, this is the Reverend Bob Levy and Dave Chappelle. And just take note of like where those two guys, this is during Chappelle's show, by the way. He's promoting it on Howard Stern. And just take note of where these guys are on their career, how this joke is used, and how one person looks at the joke as opposed to the other. And this is what I think most joke stealing accusations boil down to.
Hey, how you doing, Howard? Dave, I'm a big fan of yours, and I just wanted to know why one of my jokes actually ended up on your show one night.
Oh, really?
What is the joke? I'm going to beat my blank like it owes me money. It was in one of the songs.
Oh, because you're a hack.
I'm a hack and you're taking my stuff.
I'm going to beat my blank like it owes me money. You wrote that?
Yes, I did write that, and I've been doing it for years, and it's been my opening line.
Oh, that's barbershop talk. And that's your opening line?
Yes. Well, it was on your show. I guess you liked it.
I must have seen you at a hole in
Well,
the
you
wall.
were at Caroline's one night for the Nasty Show with some of your friends that were in the audience.
Yeah, I was. You're right. I lift material from. What's your name again?
What was that?
What's your name again?
Reverend Bob Levy. I was on the show with you a couple times.
Oh, Bob Levy.
Oh, Bob, that's you.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this the Reverend Bob?
Yeah.
Oh, look at Bob. You think Dave's taking your material?
No, I'm
I
saying
wouldn't
Dave. I'm saying his writers are dropping the ball and they're getting lazy.
Man, nobody
want to write
stole
I'll
that
write
from you.
You're not supposed to.
Do you get accused?
So I think Chappelle was a little more honest when he didn't realize it was a guy he knows, where he's like, you're a fucking hack. So if you don't know what that joke is, first of all, he's saying, beat my dick like he knows me.
Yeah.
They couldn't say it on radio. But it's amazing. They could say the F and N word on Howard Stern. They couldn't say dick. But so the joke is beat my dick like it owes me money. If you're a fan of Chappelle's show.
It's in the STD song.
Yes, the famous like fake Sesame Street sketch they do. I think it's Charlie Murphy singing it. I beat my dick like it owes me money.
Yeah.
And the character is just like, gross old man, basically. So it's kind of like a parody of what that person would be.
Yeah.
So Chappelle's instinct is like, oh, you're a hack. Like I was quoting just a cornball joke. Then when he realizes it's Bob Levy, he pays him a little more respect, and he's like, oh, I wouldn't steal that from you, Bob. But like in his mind, he's kind of saying like, that's not something you should be taking pride in. And Artie Lang has told that story a bunch where they had that argument for years, Artie and Bob. And Bob would like rant. He'd be like, "This fucking Chappelle, he's stealing from me." And Artie would be like, "What's the joke?" And he'd say, "I beat my dick like it owes me money." And Artie would go, "That's a street joke, Bob. That's not. You didn't write that. Like it's not. That is not your joke." So I think a lot of joke thievery is people like Bob Levy, Tammy Pescatelli, whoever, who are a little bitter about where their career is, think they should have fame that other people should, and are saying this person stole from me. And they use that as an excuse of why they're at the point they are in their career versus whoever they're, bitter about making it.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like that's a lot of it. But we ran the gamut today of joke stealing. I don't know what we solved. Nothing really.
All I know is Leary, if you're getting jail because of this, Leary's getting 3 life sentences.
Yes. That's a good way to do it. Yeah.
Schumer will give her like 11 years.
11 years.
Yeah, she gets time served, I think.
God damn it.
No.
I thought Johnny Cochran her out of this.
No, 11 years. 11 years. That's nothing. She's going to get out after 6.
I don't know. After my masterful, you're not factoring in my masterful job of lawyering.
You're ignoring facts, though.
That's what Johnny Cochran did as well.
That's true. I think everyone else is like a fine.
Yeah. Those are the 2 probably most egregious. And everyone else, it's like, I don't know. I think we get a little too worked up about joke stealing. So it is like the high crime of comedy. But I think today, at the very least, we saw that like it's not always that big a deal. Don't get so worked up about it, people.
And if you think you see someone stealing jokes, go back, watch Dennis Leary, and then rewatch the one you think is a steal again and compare.
That's the definition of a steal. Dennis Leary is the bar.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
I've never seen it. I've heard people say it.
Yeah.
And
he sucks.
most of the time you hear the asshole song. That's
It was
not even,
wild.
It's not even close. At least he made a song out of it.
I had to spare Matt because he cut so many Amy Schumer clips. I was like, I can't give him all these Dennis Leary clips. It's going to be exhausting. So yeah, that's our joke stealing episode. I hope everyone liked it.
Yeah.
Make sure if you want to hear more of these boys, Mike and Craig, go listen to Very Good Show on iTunes, wherever you're listening to this.
Everywhere.
Go subscribe to Very Good Show. And then make sure you hit up Matt from RI on Twitter, at Matt from RI, vaultedpodcastsri.com, as in Rhode Island, because right here in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, is where you can get Vaulted Podcasts if you want to record or film anything. Make sure you hit up Vaulted Podcasts, and your podcast can sound as good as this one. Even better because I won't be on it. And go to patreon.com/blindmike to get these episodes a week early, as well as all other bonus material. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page as well. We want more people watching this program, so subscribe on YouTube, all of that. Anything else before we get out of here?
Share it with one person, but go to Linktree, Blind Mike Project on Linktree, find our merch store, buy some merch.
Buy yourself a hoodie or a zip-up. The zip-ups are nice, too.
Yeah.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.